Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me, a familiar face to all of Vol Nation, Charlie Taylor, VFL. Charlie, I got to say, I'm a little nervous about the post-Charlie Taylor world here with Vol Baseball because your 4 years on Rocky Top, I don't know will ever be topped. Like, you redshirt your first year here, but you were a part of the best 4 years span in Tennessee baseball history. Is there a chance we keep you around for at least one more year to ensure that there is a smooth transition from this 4-year era?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chase. It was a good 4-year run, but I'm not the one that is that's leading the charge. The program is still in good hands, and I don't think you should expect to see any drop off of success or fun to watch factor now that I'm won't be on the field.
Well, we shall see, Charlie. We shall see. You talked about just the program is in good hands, and it's not a firestorm, but you kind of went viral last week on Twitter with your thread on Tennessee baseball and your time here. What inspired that, and how long was that in the works? Because I imagine this was not rolling just stream of consciousness. You seem pretty. You're getting your MBA here. I think you're a pretty thoughtful guy. This felt like something that you've been thinking about doing for a while.
Yeah, I mean, so right when the season ended, obviously it was a very emotional time. We had just won the whole thing, and then it's kind of weird because you get back to Knoxville, you do the parade, you think this is awesome, but then the hard part is that guys got to get ready for the draft, or they got to, they're out of eligibility, they got to go get a job, they've got different stuff to do, so you really don't have much time to be together as a group and soak in the win. We got back to Knoxville. We had one, last team meeting that was a little bit, tough, and everybody kind of goes their separate ways. So I don't know. I guess I didn't feel ready to, or didn't have the right words to, just immediately post something on social media. And I didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle of a million Vol baseball posts going out there. I kind of wanted to wait till I could, one, collect my thoughts, but two, draw a little bit more attention to it because I thought I had some good things to say about the program.
What did you hear in the response? Were you surprised by just the overwhelming response by both Vol fans, and I'm sure from players and coaches and stuff like that too?
Honestly, not really. I mean, because that's what I've come to expect from Vol Nation from being here for 4 years. I mean, whether it was my sophomore year when I had to come in unexpectedly in the regional, the way that the fans picked me up and almost willed me to, help out my team that weekend was something I'll never forget. I know my parents will never forget it. But there was just repeated instances over and over through my 4 years here of how special Vol fans are. And so I kind of figured that I had some things to say that they might enjoy to hear on social media.
I love it. So you redshirted your first year, and then you're part of it for the last 3 here. When you look at the last 3, which do you think was the most interesting to go through? Because obviously you have the number 1 team breaking out here in 22. You have the team that's preseason number 2 start off with a struggle in Arizona, go through adversity throughout the year, and really just, the craziness in Southern Miss, under the bleachers and all that, but just they were the adversity team. And then this year, obviously, winning it all as a number 1 team all over again. When you look back at the last 3, what do you think was the most interesting as a teammate to go through?
Even including the last 4. So
Yeah.
The first year was, for me, it was awesome because I didn't really have any of the pressure of performing at all. It was just, hey, you're the bullpen catcher. Your job is just to be a good teammate and make sure your guys are ready to go. But going back to that first year was kind of the weird year after COVID, but it's, we had a great team the COVID year. And then that 2021 season is where we kind of showed the country. Okay, Tennessee baseball is here to stay. We made it to Omaha. That's great, but let's build on it now. And then 22, it was just a combination of super talented young guys and then older guys that had a chance to stick around because of COVID. And that thing just exploded. And, that everybody has their theory of what happened, but the bottom line is we got beat by a good Notre Dame team, and it was heartbreaking. But, you learn from that. We're in the outfield after losing, and everybody's emotional. And Coach V, basically, the gist of his message was, this sucks, but you're crazy if you don't think that I'm going to use this experience to make this program better. And, 2023 was tough because we had the great season last year. We've got a lot of talent coming back. We've got some new guys from the transfer portal. So you're thinking, oh, it'll be, just smooth sailing. But I think you take a step back and you realize, hey, this is college baseball. 2022 season is not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to take some lumps. But that was to be able to come out on the other side of that and turn that thing around like we did with some of the moments along the way is pretty remarkable and says a lot about coaching staff and some of the guys on that team that really stuck with it through some tough times. And then this last year, I think, was really a culmination of having guys that had been there the whole time and learned all those lessons. They learned, how to build that gritty culture that we built in 21. They learned maybe from their mistakes in 22 of how to deal with success the right way. They learned in 23 how to, persevere through some rough stretches. And then in 24, it was just a really mature team and a really talented team. And obviously it worked out for us.
I love that. One of the more interesting things too, I think, with the last 2 years, especially, or I guess last 3 with Tennessee baseball too, is like you have this front row seat and you're in catchers meetings, you're involved in all of this. And I'm curious from your vantage point, Charlie, it's interesting to me that Tony and Tennessee has been able to thrive, whether it's somebody like Evan Russell, who is a completely different skill set than Cal Stark. They could not be different catchers at Tennessee, but both were extremely successful in different ways. Why do you think Tennessee was able to juggle those two different types of catchers and find elite success with both?
I think the easiest answer off the top is that both of them are elite leaders, and they, Coach Elander always tells us the 3 things for the catchers are catch it, keep it in front, and control the running game. And anything on top of that is a bonus. And so, the first priority is taking care of your pitching staff. And it's my opinion that if you're going to be a really good team, you got to be strong up the middle. Pitcher, catcher, center field, and the 2 middle infield positions. And if you're going to accomplish your goals, it really helps if your catcher is a true leader and the pitching staff looks up to him, the coaching staff trusts him. So I don't think there's anybody now or in the last 4 years that we would throw back there, that catcher position that the coaches don't believe is a great leader.
Do you think that's why catchers seem to be the most likely future managers? Like, it's just there. What is it about for you being a catcher for so long, Charlie, and being a bright guy? Like, is it just because you see the game differently? Is it because you have to call the game? Is it because you're like, how does it work as because I mean, there's broadcast, like you're over there, you're like on TV, where it's just I wonder from your vantage point, are you looking and you have to be more aware of everything going on the mound, at the plate, everything. It just, is that the reason that catchers, generally speaking, become coaches?
Yeah, I think could be a few things. First, like you're saying, the extra accountability and responsibility that you have during the game, it makes your brain work overtime, and it's good experience for some of those high pressure moments you could have as a manager, some decisions you have to make where you got to be really decisive. But then also, like I was saying, your first priority is that pitching staff. And so sometimes, maybe your body doesn't feel as good, or you have to sacrifice some of the things maybe that you want to do offensively in order to take care of your first priority, which is being a good defender and taking care of the pitching staff. So I think the position naturally has you thinking of others first and not so wrapped up in your own success. A lot of times we'd go out there after a game, and whoever was catching that day might be upset. Maybe they struck out 3 times or whatever, but we won the game. And Coach Elander would always just look at us and say, what'd you do tonight? And whoever it was would say, I was 0 for 3 or whatever. And he said, you caught it, you kept in front, you controlled the running game. That's a win. That's a win. You did your job. Keep grinding. So it's not always about personal accolades and success. It's about the betterment of the team and how you can lead your pitching staff. So I think it forces you to look at the whole picture rather than just your own results.
Who do you think you got to know the best in terms of the pitcher catcher dynamic? Who did you catch for the most and like help? Who do you think in your 4 years you helped the most?
That's a good question. Let's see. I mean, there was some crazy. I mean, I remember a couple of times I'd walk out of there after a scrimmage in February or January catching Dolander and Burns and Joyce, and my palm is black and blue from their fastballs. But
was it really?
Oh yeah, I mean,
black and blue.
It when it was cold in a scrimmage, it was like a mental warfare to get ready to go back there and be like, you know what, this is gonna hurt. The first few pitches are gonna suck, but then I'll go numb and it'll be all good.
I mean, did you have them back to back? Like, there wasn't like a Doe to Joyce situation, was there, where you're back to back with those two?
It depends on the day, because a lot of times you'll have, once you get close to the season, it's, they set it up where they're projected like Friday night guy will throw on one day, and it's like a schedule gearing you up towards the first start of the year. So sometimes they have that starter and then maybe a front of the line bullpen guy coming in right behind them. But let's see, a pitcher, back to your question, a pitcher that I liked working with. Andrew Banky this last year, it was cool to see him grow up a little bit. I caught him his freshman year in a few midweeks. He was actually planning to redshirt, I think. The coaches were planning that, and he was throwing live at bats and performing really well.
Yeah.
And, they thought they saw some competitive spirit in him and said, we need to get this guy on the mound, get him some experience. And so he went out there, and we, against Austin P, I think his freshman year, something like that, he got out of a really tough bases loaded jam, and that was a big moment for him. And then to see him grow up this year was really big. But I don't know why it took me this long to get my answer, but Zander's the obvious answer to your question, because we were the Georgia connection, the midweek duo. So, and then to see him, grind it out and be just such a workhorse for us the first 3 years, and then get his opportunity on the weekend this year and take advantage of it. And then ultimately be, I think he was the winning pitcher in game 3. I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy, and that'll make you a little emotional.
I mean, it's going to be hard to top that story, but I also just imagine you being like, hey, can I get Zander? Like, I imagine catching Zander is pretty nice. Like, you're just like, can we get Zander in here? Like, not only is he a funny dude, but like, it's a little bit easier on the mid.
Yeah. You don't move the glove. You just tell him where you want him to throw it, and he hits the spot.
Is that, because that's the other part of it. I mean, that run from May to mid-June, what was he like during that time when you're like, oh, Zander, because you could tell the confidence was just building. And some guys you just, like, my wife and I were watching the replacements last night, and Gene Hackman's like, winners like want the ball. And it just felt like that was Zander Sechrist for a month and a half, was just like, give me the ball. Like, I think he would have pitched every day if he could have just like, all right, I can go again. I have some juice left. And you're like, I don't think so, Zander. And he's just like, no. He may have gotten more energy from the hat flying off. Like, what does it look like if Zander has a hat that fits? I'm glad we'll never know, because that might be a totally different situation. But I don't know. To me, it felt like he just gained more and more confidence. And he's just such a different, like, I like variety. And I don't know if you're the same way. In baseball, it's just that, like, you had so many different pitchers last year who were completely different. Like, you had Combs, who's completely different than Kirby, who's completely different. then even like the Kazi, who's completely different, then Zander. Like there was just so much just variety, and I wonder if that was part of what made it so difficult to face these Tennessee pitchers this season, because it wasn't the most orthodox style with an opener on Friday. But I imagine for opposing teams, it was hard to get a read on what you were going to do because these guys are all so different, had very different skill sets.
Yeah, different skill sets, different styles, but I would say the attitude and the approach they brought to the field every day was the same, which is
Yeah.
what made him so good. Combs is a good one that you talked about, Zander, Kirby, a few others. You knew what you were going to get from Stamos. You knew what you were going to get from going out there, Kazi, whether the result was what we wanted or not. You knew they were going to lead us into a weekend the right way. And then another one I want to give a shout out to is Snead, where at the beginning he his numbers were fine, but I think we could all see it in himself. He was a little just frustrated with some of his outings, and I think he was struggling with what I was saying is up and down and up and down and riding the rather than just kind of being the same guy out there every time. And I really saw him grow up and be a key to our Omaha run the last few weeks there. And the maturity had nothing to do with he was hitting his spots more or his stuff got better. It was just a mental mindset of, I'm a competitor. Things might not go perfect. Somebody might make an error behind me. I might walk somebody, but my attitude, my approach is going to stay the exact same. So I'm excited to watch him this year because I think he should take some really big confidence and just belief in himself from what he did and how he grew over last year.
Absolutely. What do you think is from the outside? I mean, you've got to know Tony very well, obviously over the years, Charlie. Like what from the outside that you've seen people and when they talk about Tony Vitello, what is the biggest misunderstanding from the outside versus the Tony Vitello on the inside?
I mean, I guess it depends on who's talking about him from the outside. Obviously, Vol Nation loves him, but I guess the biggest misunderstanding from others is that he's this asshole who's bumping umpires and throwing bats at people. That's not. He truly. The reason why he's so good is because he's a servant leader and he would do anything for his players. He wouldn't ask you to do something that he wouldn't do himself or has already done himself. And then, when you leave the field, it's tough to stay longer than he does. You're normally going to see his light on up there in the office, whether he's recruiting on the phone or he's out, watching a game or getting ready for the team we're playing this weekend with the game plan. It never stops. And that's why I think he's the best in the country. He works harder than anyone. He prepares and, he gets the right people in the building and he knows the right buttons to push to motivate them.
Absolutely. I mean, the staff itself, like it's just getting him, Frank, Elander back another year is a huge win for Tennessee. Quentin being back, like it's just that continuity, I feel like, is a big part of it too. And I'm sure as a player, you saw that the value in having these guys that you were recruited by who have been around this whole time. Like I'm sure that was a big part of this 4-year run, right?
It's huge. And it goes back to just, he knows the right people to get in the building and it makes it a great work environment to come to every day. And that's something that's important to him and important to us. And going back to talking about the 2023 season a little bit, there was a stretch there where it wasn't a fun place to go to work for a little while. And that was tough to pull out of, but I think that's what made this 2024 year so fun, is because there was a lot of guys that were there in 23, saw what could happen when, that chemistry breaks down a little bit, that, whatever it was, it made us so happy to be a part of what we had in 24 because we really appreciated it.
I've said, and I was talking to Andrew Lindsey about it a few weeks ago. It's just, I don't know if 24 happens without 23. I think you have to go through that adversity. Yeah. I think 23 is I hope it's not lost from Vol fans years from now, because I just think 23 had to happen for 24 to go the way it did.
Yeah, and like I said, the fact that it's not like 23 was a bad year. I mean,
No, it was just adversity. Like it was just something
yeah,
you've been punched in the mouth and kind of like, whoa, we can't just rest on our laurels and be the number 2 team and just people are just gonna like, oh, we're Tennessee baseball, we're the top dogs now. It was different.
yeah, and Coach V is the ultimate competitor, and I don't think he ever likes losing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of times out there when he's talking to us, he always says it's nice to have a Rolodex of ways that you can win.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe after a game where we didn't have our best, but we gritted it out, or maybe we won on a bunt, or we stole a base
Mm-hmm.
that was huge, or we played good defense, whatever it was. He always talks about how it's good to have a lot of ways to win, because that's what postseason baseball is. You're going to see something you've never seen before. It's whatever your game plan was on paper, it's probably not going to work that way. And you could say the same for, I think part of the reason that last year was so special is we weren't just, for as good as our record was, we weren't just running through people at the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
the year. It was, we played a 1-1 series against Bama, lost that one. We played 1-1 series, I think, for the first 5 or 6 weeks of
Yeah.
SEC play. So, and that's, if you're going to win the whole thing, you got to win a series. So,
Yeah.
he told us along, I think, right when we got to Omaha, it was basically just about being where your feet are, being present, focusing on the game. But he made a comment one time that if we're in this thing in the end, you could probably fast forward to the end, and that thing will go to game 3, because that's just how it
Yeah.
is. That's postseason baseball. So he had us always ready to compete, and going back to 23, a lot of times you learn the most about yourself when you go through those tough times.
Could you see Combs smile from the dugout from your spot? Could you see that? Like it just because now it's just this iconic picture of him smiling before the game winner there. I mean, could you see from the dugout where you were like, oh, Combs is he's shutting this down. It's over.
Honestly, I don't remember too much from
Yeah.
that last stretch. I was kind of blacked out, just focused in on getting that last out, saying whatever I could to help from the dugout, looking for whatever I could to help the guys that were out there on the field. And so no, I don't remember. I was blacked out probably.
It's my favorite picture from Tennessee baseball.
Yeah.
Like Combs, and it's just his personality. It seems like he was just hang loose and just kind of like he's just certain guys you're just like that's just a bullpen guy you want. Like it's just there's something about this guy that's just I'm glad it was him who closed it down for Tennessee baseball, because I mean just the mustache and everything just felt right.
So part of the reason that it was even more funny was in 2023, the fall of that year. So it was fall 2022. We're playing our fall World Series. My team loses a heartbreaker in game 1. In
Mm-hmm.
game 2, Combs is on the mound to shut it down for their team and win the series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like second and third, we're down by 2. They just need one more out to close it, and there's nobody on first, and he steps off and throws the first to pick somebody off, and there's nobody there, and throws it away. 2 runs score, we tie the game, and I actually ended up hitting a walk-off grand slam off of Combs to win the game. But anyways,
Whoa.
we kind of made fun of Combs for that whole thing for a while, so that made it even more funny when he went to go pick off in the
Yeah.
in game 3, because it had already happened before and it was deja vu. So it was, I guess that's the one thing I do remember is kind of laughing, because we had kind of already seen this before.
That's hilarious. I mean, I'm curious, like, with what's next here. I know you're getting your MBA and you're about to finish up here, Charlie. I mean, do you have the coaching itch from like just standing next to Vitello and Elander and learning for these last couple of years? Is that something? I mean, Kirby obviously going into coaching with Tennessee. Is that something that you see for yourself, or is it just something like, hey, maybe we'll see how it goes the next couple of years? Like, where do you stand on coaching?
I have the leader itch for sure. I want to lead people in a way that's very similar to what Coach V does, to how Coach Elander, Coach A, Coach Q does it, and I'm leaving out a few others, but I want to, because of the great leaders in the Tennessee baseball program, it's kind of inspired me to be a leader in my own right. And whether that's baseball or not, we'll see. For now, I think I'm ready for a break from the game. I didn't want to. It felt like the perfect time to hang up the cleats. I didn't want to end up coming back and resenting the game of baseball that I love so much when I knew that I was probably ready to be done. So I think for now I'm going to take a little bit away from the game, but I could totally see that itch coming back down the line one day, whether that's college or youth baseball or high school, whatever it might be.
Wesleyan Wolves, like maybe Charlie Taylor. He's guiding the Wesleyan Wolves here in a couple of years.
That would be something. I think they actually just hired a new head coach. I need to do some research on him, but I want to say he was a part of the Georgia Tech program at some point. So they're in good hands. But that would be something for sure.
There you go. One of the things too that I'm very curious about, Charlie, is like you've seen like fall ball is so competitive. I talk with friends of mine where I'm like, I couldn't imagine being a Vol baseball like recruit for fall ball because there's just so much competition and there's just so much star power, especially now that you're fighting for spots in the spring. But I imagine for you saw over the last couple of years like, oh, this guy's gonna be like you knew certain guys before they burst onto the scene at Tennessee. Who did you spot? Like who can you say like, oh, this guy's gonna be good when you saw him come through that you were like, oh, you knew before any other Vol fan knew that. Who would you say?
I mean, CMO is obviously one that jumps out. But I guess from a pitcher side, Chase Burns is always my least favorite to hit against. I don't know that I hit a ball out of the infield off of him in fall ball or that little period in the winter. Let's see. I will say a lot of people, so the fall is important, but they always say it's kind of just like a pole position thing. You're here, this guy's here, but it doesn't have a huge bearing on who plays in the spring. The most important period is when you go home for Christmas about this time. You got to make sure to get your work done because those scrimmages from the middle of January until opening day, that's really where you win or lose a spot. And then obviously that competition continues throughout the whole season. But as far as guys that I knew were going to be really good, CMO is just his talent is off the chain. KT was a fun one to watch develop because he always had the ability, but you really just saw him mature mentally and mature as a hitter. And knowing the strike zone a lot better through his 3 years there. So that was a fun one to watch. AJ Russell's another one. I can't take credit for it, but Coach V and then Sean McCann, who's maybe Coach Vitello's most trusted source of information, but they knew it right away. Even when he got here in his first outing, I want to say he gave up 4 home runs in the top of the first of his first outing here. And, he's down on himself, but Coach V's pumping him up. Great job. You pound the strike zone, all this stuff. And at that time, he wasn't throwing very hard at all. It was maybe 87, 88, but they saw, for whatever reason, they saw it in him. And obviously they know how to evaluate talent because that guy's got a lot of it.
I hope he can make it back this year. I hope the timelines work because I just, like you said, he's got electric special stuff. And I'm very curious how it all unfolds, but for Russell especially, that'd be a great story if he's able to find his way back here in 2025. The final 2 things here for you, Charlie. So obviously there's a lot going on at Lindsey Nelson Stadium right now, right? Like we're adding the press box gone right now and all kinds of renovations. If Charlie Taylor could get one thing put in, like, because I love a good ballpark that has like culture and like what's different, like Camden Yards and Fenway. There's something about it that's just different. If you got one thing, they came to you and were like, hey, what's one thing you'd like to add to LNS? What would you add? What would you do to make it special? What's something cool?
So another side note, me and my dad, our goal before I went to college was to go to all the MLB stadiums before I went to college, and we had it. We were going to do it. We had 2 left. and then COVID ruined it. But we had a trip planned to Oakland and Seattle to see the last two. So we've been to all of them except that. But I mean, I loved San Francisco having the bay back there where you hit homers into. I'm not sure that we could move the river that close to the
There's got to be some dam control. Can we get involved? Can we push the river, like have that just like build a bridge? Like I don't know how much this costs, but let's just go ahead and add this to the budget where we just have maybe you get a moat. What is it called that circles the castle? What is that called?
A moat.
A moat. Yeah, we get a moat. Could you do that? Could you handle a moat?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that, or we could just settle for like a cool fountain or something in the outfield where you hit a homer into and the fans dive in the water and try and grab it. But
that would be fun.
Yeah,
that could get messy for Vol fans. I think that one might be that might be a hazard, Charlie. I think that one might be a hazard.
Yeah.
I love it. Final thing here, Charlie, what is one thing that you're going to miss most about playing or Tennessee baseball here? Because next year, I mean, this is it. Like, you're not going through the offseason program and everything. What are you going to miss most about being a Tennessee baseball player? Yeah,
I think that's an easy one for me. It's just the random locker room interactions and having an immediate group of 50 best friends that you hang out with every day. I'm glad that I got to do some great things on the field at Tennessee, but really what meant the most to me was being a good teammate and those relationships that I built and that I'll have forever. Those mean the most to me, and it's going to be tough to recreate a community like the one that I had here, and that's not something you want to take for granted. So I think that's the biggest thing I'm going to miss is just that community, the going to work every day with your best friends. That's something that's tough to recreate.
I love it. Charlie Taylor, congrats on a great volunteer career. I'm excited to see what's next for you here, and we'll have to maybe check back in again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Chase. Go Vols.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.